how we should interpret those words.
Okay, so frequency is predicated upon points of peaked vibration or sound. It's like a oscillation. Every peak, the level of peaks determines the frequency, which when you trace the word frequency back is how frequent or often, or it's a consistent rate of oscillation. That's the frequency. The vibration is the thing which has the frequency. And the vibration is the movement of the energy. So you measuring the energy by its frequency, and then by knowing the frequency, you know what the vibration is, or the rate in which this energy comes into 3D reality. It's like measuring brain waves. They all got a different frequency, and they all on a different, so it's like a radio. You got a whole bunch of radio stations, and you can change the dial to a different frequency in order to get a different channel. Every frequency has a different channel, and there's a different broadcast coming on every channel. So when we're talking about vibrations and frequencies, we're talking about sound. It got to be a sound at its root. And the sound is a audio rendition of light. So if you notice certain lasers, when they turn them on, they hiss. Right? That's the sound. That's where they coming in at. On that hiss is telling you where the sound is coming from in frequency and point of origin.
Okay, that's correct. So how does that relate to resonant energy?
Okay, so now go back to the radio. You're not going to get the same channels in Chicago that you pick up in Miami. The resonant frequency is the frequency from a specific area, right? It can only, the sound wave can only rise from this area. It becomes a resonant frequency, or a resident frequency is a better way to look at it.
Why is that?
Because it's only in a certain, it only has a certain reach. And it's just like when you're in a residence, you only live in a certain place.
Right.
So you got an address. When you have a resonant frequency, the resonant is the residence of the frequency, tell you where it comes from. It's like the address.
So some people was reaching out to me. I guess they've been reading certain books that was dealing with the electron. And I'm pretty dope on the comprehension about the electron. But what they were saying was that they consider the electron God.
They can consider whatever they want to consider as God. That's their option as a free will, in a free will universe. But the electron is only part of an atom. You can't have a positive charge without a negative charge, and vice versa. But you can have a neutral charge with both of them.
That is correct. So I was speaking with a sister, and I was trying to give her the understanding similar to you as far as, vibration and frequency, and that the phenomena that humans call sound is more accurately described as vibration or movement. And, since there is vibration and movement on all scales, from the microcosmic and subatomic to the macroscopic and universal, that there is indeed sound on all scales as well. Just as there is visible light spectrum of electron movement that we can see, there is also audible sound spectrum of movement of vibrations that we can hear. And I was explaining that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to look at, when you get to the atom, you take the electron and you got a string of light that's curled up in the ball. They call that the string theory in science.
Right. I'm familiarized with that.
Okay, now, if you stretch the string of light out, the less condensed it is, the different frequency it's going to put out. It's going to change it. The Higgs boson is light literally tied into a knot, which causes it to create the appearance of density.
Right.
Right. So now we're talking God particles. Higgs boson. So what we perceiving is holographically generated, and any part of the hologram is a representation of the whole.
Right. It's like divided into individual parts, but they all contain everything in all the parts.
And that's why they say as above, so below, as within, so without. When I talk about Enlil, Enki, I'm talking about frequencies in reality. I'm talking about vibrations, but I got to put it in the term that we know about.
Right, because I was explaining that to a sister that, and I think she pretty much got heated when I was telling her that basically the way that we were educated in the tab was not the same way that they were educated just by strictly reading the scrolls. And I think she was pretty offended, but I didn't mean it in that way. All I was trying to tell her was that there is a lot of what's called esoteric knowledge inside of the protocols in the Wabble, right? And when I say esoteric knowledge, I'm talking about anthropomorphism and anthropopathism as a means to give a clear, concise, and comprehensive understanding of complex subject matter, right? It's not literal, it's symbolic, right? These energies are literal, but the actual person that you're talking about may not be literal. And when I tell you she was pissed off, she was pissed off. She was pissed off.
See, but that's because the exoteric and the esoteric is mirror images of each other. And if you are a diligent student, the esoteric will appear as like a leak in the exoteric. So when we study in the higher sciences, we study in at its source dark matter.
Absolutely.
But everything that we tell you in science is a way to understand the dark matter and how it becomes solidified as 3D condensation in the hologram in order to form something that we can experience three-dimensionally.
Right. So back to the electron, because it just a thought came to my mind. So when I was actually having the conversation with the one, well, actually it was two, it was a brother and a sister. I was trying to describe to them that the words electric and electricity both derive from the Greek word electron, and that the word electron is composed of two Greek words, elect, meaning to choose or pick out, which is also related to, the word elite, selected or chosen, and that the word tron is an instrumentive suffix used with a verb to designate something that performs some action. So in this case, something that elects or chooses, for example, the particle that elects to move, and that the etymological root of all of the words, electric, electricity, electron, elect, elite, lecture, and intellect is lexis, as in lexicon, and more specifically, the Greek word or Latin word logos, the spoken word in the Greek philosophy that was designed from the creative utterance word or tone of what we call patah, called who in ancient Kemetic philosophy. And they thought that that was just, a little bit more complex. You got a more simplistic way of explaining it.
That sounded pretty simplified form to me.
That's what I thought. Like, it's just like, but I think that sometimes when people are reading, they're reading with intent to not have to go outside of that to be able to validate or do some research about it themselves. They just want to believe in whatever the book actually said. And to me, from my perspective, that's that's definitely kind of lazy.
Well, not necessarily, because, like, for instance, I can use the Bible to teach a Christian out of Christianity, and they won't really be as a man-controlled drone as they are under the doctrine of the church.
Right.
The same book can have a different effect when taught at a different angle.
That's because you're going to give different interpretation as you explain and define the words.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come with a Bible and a strong concordance, and every time I tell them something, I'm going to show them what I'm talking about. But the church not going to do that. The church is going to say, and the Lord fed the multitude with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Yeah, and that's not our way of teaching. That's definitely not our way. And my first thing I tell them is, the first thing you got to understand about the two fishes, that's representation of Pisces.
Absolutely.
And then when I tell you about 5 loaves of bread, that's 5D consciousness. 5D consciousness in the Aquarian, in the Piscean age, would have put you above water. But you stuck at 32 minus, which means that you froze.
Right.
I'm just trying to get you to 33 and you can break free.
Right. But see, that goes back to the esoteric teachings. What you're doing is, when we teach like that, we are actually translating the symbolisms into the reality of what it's actually saying.
Right. Because when you're looking at 12 disciples in the Christ, you're looking at the old civil priest's order. But you don't know that because you don't know nothing about the civil priest. That's the average Joe. The civil priest consisted of 12 matriarchs and a grand matriarch. And that's where your Catholic Church got its form and function from. They just put the Pope up there as a drag queen.
You call him a drag queen.
He is. I can't even, what I got to do to show you, everybody see him wearing a dress every day. Yeah. They just didn't know that was the dress code for the civil priestess, and they put the colors in reverse. See, he's supposed to, if he was a woman, he'd be dressed in black instead of white, because he would be representing of the noon. And the nuns, who is they saying is the representative of the noon, would be in white and not black, because they would be representative of the light that came forth from the dark mother.
Right.
But they switched everything in reverse, and then they turned it upside down, so you can't figure it out. That's our old orders. All of that shit is ancient. They just usurped it because we was familiar with it. Genetic memory recognized the Christ story, but we being taught it wrong, so we don't know what it means.
Absolutely.
Just watch what happened. That's all I can tell y'all at this point. We passed trying to tell y'all, we got to watch it from here.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a sad song being sung for a lot of people. They just not listening. And like
there's
I told
more
you,
people listening than we know. It's just that the reality of what's happening versus their expectations doesn't match. So they don't know what to do when they froze.
I can see that. I could definitely see that. But nonetheless, we still need everybody, from my perspective, we need everybody active. We need to be together. We all need to be on one.
I think the big wake up is going to be when we see the elders make their appearance to the public.
Yeah, why is that?
A lot of them ain't going to move until they have that shock and awe of the disclosure and shake their consciousness. Some of them that didn't know what to do going to automatically remember at that point. It's a monumental event. It's a life-altering exposure. When you realize that your people been oppressed by some motherfuckers that look like you, that use pale faces to conceal their dirty hands, that's going to be enough wake-up call for a motherfucker to be like, what the fuck? Because the worst thing I discovered in the self-discovery journey is the white man ain't white. That nigga look like us, but he ain't us. That hurt my feelings more than anything else. How can a motherfucker that look like us do this to us, but they not like us? They just look that way. They infiltrated all our organizations looking like us, talking down on whitey who they put in power.
And another question, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've explained this for the past probably 20-something years, but I want you to give your perspective on it. 6 ether and 3 ether. How would you describe 6 ether?
Can't nobody describe it better than Bubble. 6 ether is ghost. It's the death of 9 ether. It's the total inverse. So if you look at the dominant recessive gene chart, 6 ether is on one end of the spectrum, and 9 ether is on the entirely other end of the spectrum. But neither one of them in and of themselves is good or bad. But until you put an intention with them, that's what makes the difference.
I used to be an admin, you know, and this was before I had saw your live where you were explaining, you know, all the scamming stuff she was doing, and I wasn't really using my discernment because a lot of her followers in her group are really low vibrational people who really don't be using their discernment to really figure out stuff on their own. And you see, I know I'm from the land, you know what I'm saying? My dad, he's from Chicago, and our ancestors come from Mississippi. And when I know my lineage, I know where I come from. When people disrespect that lineage in my line, I can't rock with that. You know what I'm saying? And for her to really come in and try to deceive, and knowing the fact that she constantly tries to preach that go inside yourself, but while still trying to sell a dream, that shit right there is deceitful. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you don't ever really be trying to sell nobody nothing. You don't even be pushing your 3 king shit that much either. You know what I'm saying? So when you come with your information and when you come with what you're talking about, you come authentic, you come real. You know what I'm saying? All the game you get for free from the heart. She don't be giving game like that, bro. And all the stuff that she really do be doing, she be grabbing shit from the community and trying to regurgitate it like she's the high priest, the high oracle, the one that's really talking shit. You know what I'm saying? And I was, like I said, I was in her her admin group and all that shit, you know what I'm saying? And I could tell the energy in there was a lot of not thinking for themselves as females. And a lot of females gravitate to that big mama because they need they need somebody to kind of hold them, to coddle them, you know what I'm saying? And that's not what we need as people. I don't care if you of my people or you not, you don't need to be coddled. You need to be able to go inside yourself and grab your power and take back what is yours, you know what I'm saying, as far as your bloodline goes. And, you know, I've already been hip on the conjuring, the trying to do a certain spell to get this, selling some snake oil for that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm already peeping the game. And see, I didn't really get on her shit before what's it called? Before last year, somebody else had posted her. I think it was like the aliens are black. Somebody posted her shit. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, she's saying some shit about the industry, but she was in the industry. So even right there, I was like, well, how much is she really saying that's actually truth, actually factual? You know what I'm saying? So, well, you know, bringing it back, you know, to a lot of what you was talking about, you know what I'm saying, talking about the real dragon underneath the Vatican, you know what I'm saying, how, though, the real enemy and all those different things, you know, I try to, like, you know, I be explaining it to my wife, you know, and she's also up on the shit too. And so when we hear what you talk about the truth, it's like we can't do nothing but just spread it. You know what I'm saying? We can't do nothing but try to tell our people, even the people that ain't us, you know, the truth. And so, you know, there's a lot of that goes on, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I had to really step away from all that. And I appreciate, you know, you being 100. I appreciate you, what you're doing. I did have a question though about, you know, how do we really know our actual indigenous tribe? How do we find that information but without going through like some DNA ancestry? Is it just through the genealogy records, or
you get signs? Like you just told me you was a Mississippian out the gate.
Yeah.
The Mississippian is one of the oldest tribes, and they connected to every tribe. This is why we can become honorary members of all of the tribes. When this type of work need to be done, all of the tribes put us through the ringer. I haven't been, even though I've been in the criminal underworld, so to speak, for this society. And of all of the despised and rejected, I become the most loved and respected by being a bump straight.
Same.
Right. So when all of the tribes say, okay, what's going on the land, I have to tell them.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't hold back. I can't, like the way we wired, man, we can't go along to get along.
And that's what fucks me up, because I speak my mind so much they try to filter me. Ever since I was born little, you know, I was raised around a lot of white folks, right? So I always knew how to speak. So when they would speak to them, I would still have my tongue from who I am. So I wouldn't bite my tongue. So it would hurt them. It would make them uncomfortable. But the only reason why I was making them uncomfortable is because they weren't aware of the place that I was already sitting in. You see what I'm saying? They didn't understand the power that I was already in. So a lot of times you'll have like the pastors or the whatever of the white community try to come and say, oh, just try to fit in. You know what I'm saying? Chill off on saying nigga too much. Chill off on saying black too much. Chill off on bumping your music too loud and doing whatever, you know, just having your mannerisms as a brother. You know what I'm saying?
Look,
they try to tell you to chill off on that.
In our community, you know, we see the graffiti. We don't know that's tribal communication.
Exactly.
It's tribal communication in their motherfucking face. That's why they made it illegal.
Mm-hmm.
They know what it is, and they know we talking on the land, but they don't know what the fuck we saying because they can't read our language. But we can read theirs.
Exactly. So, and go ahead. Sorry, brother. Sorry.
So when I go through the community.